You ever categorize your life into little chapters or arcs? Times of life-altering events that cause changes within you as a person? Well, that's how I felt about my most recent job. I'd been employed for the last year or so. I would safely sort it into a character growth chapter of my life. It had its ups and many downs, but in the end, it's all growth, baby. I won't go into specifics for the place I worked at, but it was a food service job at a big event venue. So I was looking for a few jobs in the area, as a friend had suggested. For this job in particular, I even wrote a cover letter. The I part is a little exaggerated since I used ChatGPT to write the letter, but I fed it some top shelf info. I got an email shortly after asking to come in for an interview, so that's what I did. From the outside, the place looked decent enough. From the inside, not so much. The kitchen, though, looked okay. It had half the stank, grime, and muck that other kitchens I worked in had. The interview turned out to be more of a tour. I was immediately hired. Must have looked cute that day. Or they were desperate for workers. And ChatGPT lied and said I had a waiter experience, so maybe a stew of all those reasons. Now, the first month, it was kind of a weird one. I didn't really fit in at first, and I only talked briefly to a few people. Don't know how normal it was, but it was what it was. Started to talk to people one by one. It seems like if you come out of nowhere, you have to kind of gain people's trust a little bit. It's like a meter that fills with daily interactions. By the end, I actually had a good group of people to talk to. I got yelled at a few times in the early stages, not by bosses, but by coworkers. I guess I look like someone who needs to be yelled at. But eventually, they came around too and started acting friendly. Over time, as I started to open up a bit more, I made a few friends there, which was a mini goal of mine, so mission accomplished. Over time, I did mostly the same types of events. At first, there's a lot to learn, but then you learn it, and then there's a lot less to learn. Doing the same thing over and over and over again kind of wears on you, not only mentally, but physically. You're sort of stuck in a loop. Being the dapper gentleman I am, I'd be saddled with a lot of the heavy lifting, because by the end of my tenure at this place, there were very few men to do the same stuff as I would. If you were a hardworking man, you wouldn't last long. They'd churn you out like butter in this business. People came and went, ranging from pretty cool, genuine people to people you'd prefer not to interact with. Some were chill, and some were snakes. But that's kind of the same with life though. You got to learn to handle people, the good and the bad parts. There's a difference between getting a thick skin and getting the skills to get people to do what you want. You gotta wheel and deal them sometimes. Get out on top. But maybe this is a little sociopathic, so it's a bad. Or maybe this is just society. Quitting was a very awkward process. I flirted with the idea many times. In the beginning, creamy middle, and of course, the bitter end. Sometimes, with the amount of bullshit you have to go through, I thought about quitting on the spot. One day I just had to think, how would the me in 2 weeks feel about still working here? So I decided to put a smile on future me's face and put in my 2 weeks in an email. Maybe that's the better thing to do, since burning bridges doesn't really matter if you don't want to come back. But me, being a good little boy, decided to give my 2 weeks in an email. A great weight had been taken off my shoulders for about a day. What reignited my worries was my boss never directly talking to me about me quitting. Like, did he know I sent the email, or was he just being passive aggressive? I'd only heard whispers of him actually seeing the email, no first-hand confirmation. The only reason I knew I was off the job was a weekend I saw on the app that I was taken off the schedule. During these last few weeks, a new weight would be added, a heavy awkwardness. These last days were long, not only because it was the longest hours we'd seen in a while, but also it was my last couple shifts here. Goofing off and shenanigans commenced, some honest-to-goodness tomfoolery. The most ridiculous things happened in those last couple weeks, like running out of food, which is weird for an event venue where the biggest thing is the food. The idea of it being over soon kept me going though. Uncertainty in the future began to form, especially since I didn't have a fallback job to go to. I was just winging it. But life finds a way though. Leaving made me realize how people had felt about me. Some said goodbye, some didn't. Some even reached out after I'd left. Makes you realize who the real ones are. Now I know you're not supposed to make friends with everybody, and why would you want to? But those last goodbye talks really were cool. Not all relationships are meant to last forever, but you got the memories or some shit. It almost made me regret leaving. In retrospect, I grew from this job, mostly socially. Before this, I was a bit socially stunted as a late bloomer. In some ways, I still am. It was the college experience I never actually got in college. It had its ups and downs, but it was all XP. I proved to myself that I could make friends outside of the ones that I made in high school. Level up those social stats, get those social links up. Kinda made me romanticize the idea of getting a bunch of odd jobs, getting new skills, meeting new people, maybe even people that would stick around. Hey, if something doesn't work, try something new. You've gotta get it right eventually, right?